One of the highlights of this year's Melbourne Documentary Film Festival is a film called Reflections of Courage. And it's all about the story of Eddy Boas and how he, his brother, and his parents survived Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. But we're going to hear the full story right now as we talk about this film. Eddy, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Now, this is such an incredible story. First of all, I must ask you, I think this all started as a book, which then became the documentary.
Correct. Yeah, the book's called I'm Not a Victim, I'm a Survivor. And I started writing it when my mother passed away in 2001.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, what was the process in having this documentary made about your story?
Well, I met at one of my presentations at Parliament House, a lady called Janet Shea was there, and she heard me speak, and she ca- came to me 3 months later and said, "I heard you speak. I'm from Iran. I went through a terrible time with my parents in Iran, and your story is a story I'm looking for. I'm a film producer." She's telling me this, and I would like to do a film about you. Can we have a meeting? And that's how it started.
Ah, so tell me about negotiating with her about the film, what was going to be in the film, and how much say you would have in what goes into it.
Well, she gave me all the say as to what goes into it. She wanted my story, and as she said, you're the only one who knows your story.
Mm.
So tell it like it is. And I used to work on a radio station, 2CH in Sydney when I was a young kid. So I'm not afraid of microphones and things like that,
Yeah.
or TV cameras nowadays. So, and we spent one day filming this from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night,
Oh.
filming the documentary.
Now that's so interesting because you speak so well, you explain your story, your background in Holland and all that sort of thing. But how much did you have notes and how much did you just speak off the cuff?
It was all off the cuff, all
Wow.
of it. All of it was off the cuff. There was editing, of course, later on, you
Yeah.
know. It took us a year to edit the whole thing and put it all together as a production.
Uh-huh. I want to talk about the editing a bit later, but first I want to ask you, there's some incredible archival footage in the film. Um, a lot of it is relevant. Uh, how were you able to find all that, or did Janet find it, or how did that work?
Well, her partner was a cinematographer, is that the way they call him? The person who takes films. He did all the research for the stuff that we added onto it
Ah, okay.
and checked it if we could use it and all that sort of stuff. That in itself was quite a job.
I can imagine getting that footage and putting it in is incredible. And there's also some really nice music in the film as well.
Which is Janet's sister composed that.
Ah, okay. So, Eddie, I mean, we know 6 million Jews died during World War II, the concentration camps and Auschwitz, etc. Your story is quite an incredible one, that you were one of the few Dutch Jews that were able to survive. What a harrowing experience. Your story is incredible.
It is, and as we go through the story in the documentary or the film would be easier to say, um, we go through that as to why we survived.
Mm.
And when I wrote my book, it took me 15 years to write.
Oh,
I published it in 2017 and started writing it in 2002. But that was all due to research. I took a few months off every once in a while to get a break
mm.
because I was also working in those days. Um, and but the research about a certain event, you can't make a mistake talking about the Holocaust. I was taught that by a professor of literature. He said, if you say the 17th of April, then it has to be the 17th of April.
Mm. Yes, I understand that you have to be accurate, but I mean, your survival story is quite incredible because you could have easily been murdered in Bergen-Belsen in your family. I mean, some other family members were, but you and your brother and parents survived, which is an incredible story.
It is, as you will see in the documentary, my father was given the job. He, just backtrack for a minute, he fought the Germans in the Dutch army, and he was in the Dutch cavalry, so he understood horses. And when we were in Bergen-Belsen, when we arrived, he was put into a factory where they distributed uniforms to German soldiers and the guards and all that. And one day came up that they were looking for somebody who understood horses to pick
Mm.
up all the dead bodies that were lying around the camp. And my father got that job. That gave him the opportunity to steal food
Yeah,
for his family.
yes. Um,
So that's the
no,
main reason.
That's the main reason. It's amazing stuff to hear all of that, and you describe it all so well in the film. And I mean, in a sense, you were probably lucky that you didn't go to Auschwitz, which I think you were sort of intending to do.
Well, my mother found out when we were in a camp called Westerbork, which was a transit camp in Holland, where all Jews were sent, Dutch Jews were sent to, and then on to the different concentration camps. Initially, of course, when people were sent to Westerbork, they had no idea about concentration camps, but they soon found out through the rumors. My mother found out that her three sisters were sent to Auschwitz. So she told my father to go and see the Germans and tell them we wanted to go to Auschwitz. Lucky for us, the Germans finally did the right thing and they refused.
Oh dear, that is so fortuitous. It's incredible, and you also weave into the story because, of course, my first knowledge of Dutch Jews is Anne Frank.
Yeah,
And you weave that into the film as well.
yeah, yeah. She was murdered in Bergen-Belsen. She died of typhus and hunger. Um, and she came from Auschwitz. The Germans tried to empty Auschwitz out before the Allies arrived, and they put them on trains mainly to Bergen-Belsen. And my father's job was to pick up the bodies from the trains that arrived. And one of the things he did is ask if there was any Dutch people on board. And Anne Frank and her sister came up, but she had no family there. Her mother died in Auschwitz and her father survived.
Yeah, just incredible story. And just going on from that, only a few thousand Dutch Jews were able to survive. Over 100,000 were transported. Incredible in itself that you were so lucky.
I don't believe in luck. Uh, the whole life, that's the one thing I learned. You create your own luck, and my parents created my luck to survive in Bergen-Belsen.
Yes,
It's by stealing food, and
yeah,
my mother used that as a bargain to get people to give us clothing for us growing boys. I was 4 years old when I went into Bergen-Belsen, and yeah, obviously my clothing didn't last too long, so my mother used that an apple here from the horses to get me a jumper or shoes or something like that.
yeah, yeah, incredible. And typhus, of course, was such a big killer in the camps, and again, you were fortunate not to succumb to or your family to typhus.
Absolutely. I survived typhus as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Mm.
Um, as you find out later on in the film, uh, we were rescued by a British soldier. I don't want to go into the whole
No,
it's
no,
and spoil it if you want to go.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that sort of and the food helped as well, of course, the extra food.
yes, exactly. I mean, it's incredible to think. I mean, this happened in countries around Europe that the Dutch government was so complicit in being
Yeah.
involved in rounding up Jews and having them transported. That's incredible.
uh, it was the worst record of per head of population. More Dutch Jews were murdered than from any Western European country in Europe. Out of 107,000 Jews transported to the camps, only 5,000 survived.
Incredible. But what was it about the Dutch government that they didn't resist and that they just succumbed immediately to allowing Jews to be arrested and so on?
Well, it's hard to explain. Uh, the the Dutch were very friendly to the Jews. The Jews have been living there for hundreds of years. My
Hmm.
family's lived there for 200 years, both my family, my mother's and my father's. And they babysat for the neighbors, kids, and they set my brother, babysat for my brother and myself, sorry. And it was a friendly atmosphere. But as soon as the Nazis took over, and of course the Dutch Nazis came around the mid 30s, and then became strong, the stronger the German Nazis became, the Dutch started to turn, and neighbors betrayed neighbors.
Which exactly was happening in the rest of Europe, pretty much. So, yeah, that's just incredible how all the dominoes fell and so many Jews were transported from various countries. It's just an amazing story. Um, so, I'm interested in your journey after you were released. Well, in fact, just before that, I wanted to ask you about the British who came in to liberate you and so on and did filming, because I know Winston Churchill was involved in also documentaries about the Holocaust and so on. So the British must have been extremely friendly to you.
Well, um, we weren't there. We were taken away from Bergen-Belsen on the 9th of April. The British uh, liberated Bergen-Belsen on the 15th of April, a
Ah,
week later. The Germans wanted to get rid of all the Jews that were in Star Camp. There's 6,000 of us, and they put them on 3 trains. One train got liberated by the Americans. The second train made it to Theresienstadt, where the gas chambers were. Those people were murdered. And the third train we were on became lost, and it's known as the lost train. And we were on that train for 2 weeks without food or anything.
hmm.
And finally, it got liberated by the Russians, actually.
That's right. I remember that in the documentary, because the train actually went through Germany. Uh, yeah, what an incredible story. So, how did it come about that you were able to uh, go to Australia?
Okay, my parents, when we came back, we were locked out of our flat. We weren't allowed to go back in. The Dutch government didn't help. The police didn't help. So they had no money. All their both my father's and mother's families were totally murdered. I never had an uncle, an auntie, a grandparent, or a cousin, and they were all murdered. It was just my mother, my father, my brother, and I
Hmm.
that survived. And so after the war, my parents had my father had a distant aunt living in Australia. And my parents applied for a visa to Australia. And we received one of the first visas from Holland to Australia.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, my father passed away in 1948 from
Uh,
stress.
uh,
And I blame the Dutch government a lot for that
of
because
course.
it's a terrible time with them looking for their parents' assets and things like that. I won't go into that. So my mother then decided, she didn't want to go with a sister was born in 1947, just before my father died. So she had 3 children. Finally, she decided she wanted to get as far away from Europe as possible. We booked a boat to Australia in 1953. We arrived here, my mother, my brother, who was 4 or 5 years older than me, and my little sister arrived here in March of 1954.
Um,
And we found a place at Coogee to rent.
hmm.
My mother had a job at the Coogee Bay Hotel as a cleaning lady within a week. And we had no money. My mother had a few guilders, saved up to arrive here, but nothing that helped us that much. And we slept on the floor for quite a few weeks till we had enough money to lay-by was the big thing in those days.
Mm.
And David Jones, according to my mother, had the best lay-by system in Australia, and she bought everything from David Jones. And that's how we lived. And I went to school at Maroubra Junction, which was a boys' school. Um, but I left school at 15. I was a hopeless student. I'd never learned to read or write as a child, obviously. Nobody's ever read me a nighttime story. So I left school at 15 and got a job, lucky for me, at AWA that owned 2CH, the radio station. And I worked there for 6 years as a panel operator and a technician,
Ah,
and learned a lot about, the media, the radio media especially. They were the days where Bob Rogers and John Laws sort of came out. And it was a great job, but it wasn't earning me any money. A mate of mine talked me into becoming a salesman, and that's the rest of my life. Basically, that's what I've been.
how interesting to hear that. I'm wondering in Sydney, were there still some elements of racism or anti-Semitism that you encountered, or was it a very open, friendly society?
In my experience, it was a very friendly, open society. I never came across any anti-Semitism. I was friends with Kucha, and we're still friends today. We are going to have lunch and we are going to have breakfast. There's still six of us left. A couple live in the Gold Coast, but the four of us live in Sydney. We meet once or twice a month, still from Coogee, 70 years later.
Wow.
Uh, and they only one Jewish girl was amongst that. The rest were all Christian or whatever they might have been, you know.
Mm.
Um, and nobody cared. Nobody asked. Uh, Half the boys from that time found out I was Jewish when they read my book.
Yeah.
That's the truth. That's so many years later
Yeah.
because we talked about it.
Very interesting to hear that. And the other perspective, which we should just talk about briefly, is about the Dutch government and trying to get an apology out of them, which obviously was not an easy task.
It wasn't, but it got to me when I was writing to them and their attitudes in responses. Like when I wanted to know something, I wrote to the German government, the Dutch government, the Red Cross, and the museum in America, the whatever it is, the Holocaust Museum in America, and asked them all the same question. And the slowest answers always came from the Dutch, sometimes a year later. So that started to bug me. And then I did some research and found out that the Dutch had never apologized to its Jewish population for what they did to them in the war.
Mm,
So every letter, email I sent to the Dutch government or Dutch ministers or, excuse me, I put at the bottom, I would like an apology before I die.
mm.
And when I published my book, and I said this, never got a response from him. I wrote to a prime minister in 2009, and he gave an answer back, yes, we could have and should have done better. Then in 2017, I went to Europe, and I won't tell the full story because it is in the film.
Yeah.
I met somebody who was a personal friend of Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of Holland, and people can see it in the movie, the story how it all came about.
Of course. I mean, it's such a richly made documentary because there is so much information and so on in it. So, okay, speaking about the documentary, how closely did you work with Janet in terms of the final edit of the film?
Of very, very, very closely. Um, Having been in marketing and now in advertising, really, in direct mail advertising, that was my last job. I owned a direct mail business, marketing business. Um, and I learned how to put things together to attract an audience. So I helped them more in say what sort of pictures we should use, not the filming or anything like that. But for instance, at the end where you see all these photos,
Mm,
they were basically my personal pics to show that I met Margaret Thatcher, for argument's sake, you know.
mm,
Uh, and you know, the story of my life is quite interesting, and I've met the mafia don of New Jersey. That's in my book, the whole story about that. I've met Margaret Thatcher, and recently I had an afternoon tea with the Governor General of Australia.
Mm.
So and I've mixed with murderers as well, who've been to jail for murder. So I've
Wow.
gone right through the. I treat everybody the same till I see what they do to me.
Uh-huh. Interesting comment.
Not not that I'm friends with murderers, but I'm saying I was at a party once or a luncheon once where I
Yeah,
met someone, you know. But
sure.
I treat everybody the same, whether the person is a Storman or the Prime Minister of Australia.
Fair enough. No, no, I understand. What made you decide, or Janet or whoever, to title the film Reflections of Courage?
We kicked it around for a bit. There were a few other names mentioned, and we came up with that one, to be honest with you. Just
Hmm.
Janet is very creative, much more creative than me.
Right. Anyway.
And I'm not creative at all, to be honest.
No, but your story is just so important to tell, and I'm so glad that this film preserves that. But it is premiering then at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, which is great to see.
That we won that in Cannes. You know, we won best. I can't think of the titles of the film thing now.
Doesn't matter.
In LA, we won the best documentary, and the same in New York.
Uh-huh. Oh, well, you're getting some acclaim there, which is great. That's
Yeah,
good to hear. Because I'm wondering, with perhaps the film could be screened at the Holocaust Museum in Sydney and Melbourne and so on.
I'm not pushing it as a Holocaust museum.
Okay,
Sorry, as a Holocaust film.
sure.
I'm saying this is my life story, which includes the Holocaust.
Yes.
And the things I did after, what Australia has been very good to me.
Yep.
Um, and I still think it's the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely understand. Well, look, Eddie, I'm somewhat incredulous to hear all of that, but I'm so pleased that the film is going to be screening at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. And look, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And will you be visiting the festival in Melbourne?
Yeah, I'm coming down on Saturday, and I will answer questions in the theatre after the film has been shown.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I'm pleased to hear that. All right. Wow. So much to appreciate in this film, Reflections of Courage, and we've been speaking to Eddy Boas, whose story is such an important part of this film, Reflections of Courage, screening at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Peter, thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.